Watching Kyle Schwarber mash baseballs in the postseason really has been amazing. I mean, we've seen that before, right? That's what we expected when he came up through the Cubs organization and helped them to the World Series in 2016. Let's talk about some of those memorable home runs in honor of Schwarbs, who's now with the Phillies, who hit 2 home runs on Tuesday night to help the Phillies take a 2-0 advantage in the NLCS, and now they're 2 games away from going back to the World Series. But before he was a Philly, he was a Cub, and we're going to talk about some of those postseason home runs. But first, guys, like and subscribe, be part of our channel. This is the Cubs Baseball channel, and right now we're brought to you by a team that Kyle Schwarber played for, the Tennessee Smokies. Yep, Kyle Schwarber was a Smoky, went straight to the big leagues for the first time in a Smokies uniform. They present this channel. Check them out. They got an awesome store full of swag, celebrating their first championship in 45 years. That's smokiesbaseball.com/store. All right, guys, I'm Mick Gillispie. Welcome to the Cubs Baseball channel. Let's talk about Kyle Schwarber, one of my favorite Cubs ever, one of my favorite people I was ever around. I remember when he came up and what a great guy he was, and I bet he hasn't changed a bit. You know, he grew up, his father was in law enforcement. He just followed the rules, did things the right way, played the game hard, but he's a different type of leadoff hitter, which is really crazy to talk about a guy who just tied Reggie Jackson for the most home runs by a lefty in postseason history. And he's a leadoff guy who batted .197 this year, had more strikeouts than anyone else, hit 47 home runs, doesn't steal any bases, has lots of walks, right? It's such a modern baseball type of number game here. But that's kind of how the game is right now. And when the Phillies moved him to the leadoff spot in June, that's when their team took off. And with all those other great players on their roster, you know, you got Bryce Harper, and you could go through all the different names there, Nick Castellanos, Realmuto behind the plate, and, you know, whatever. They got a whole bunch of good players. But Kyle Schwarber, when they moved him to leadoff, that's when the team started to put it all together. They ended up as the top wild card, and now they're 2 games away from the World Series. And, you know, talking about the home runs that Schwarber hit yesterday, it kind of got me thinking about some of those great memories I have of him as a Cub. And I think the biggest one to me, the first home run he ever hit in the postseason, helped the Cubs beat the Pirates. You remember that 1-game playoff? Jake Arrieta pitched, and Schwarber hit a home run against the Pirates 2015, and that got the Cubs going, right? And they eventually got to the championship series and lost to the Mets. But it was also in that same postseason that Schwarber ended up hitting that long home run in Game 4 of the NLDS against the St. Louis Cardinals. And I'll tell you, man, that was some pretty impressive stuff. The Cubs even did a bobblehead of it. It landed on the top back of the right field scoreboard. And I think it got stuck up there for a while. So pretty funny. But that was the Schwarboard home run. That was Game 4 of the NLDS. And he hit 5 home runs during the 2015 playoffs. And 2016, remember, he got hurt early in the season and then made that miraculous comeback to join the Cubs. And because they were playing a team that had home field advantage, the Indians in the American League, he could only DH, and he came back and ended up helping the Cubs in that one. He played a postseason with the Red Sox, and he homered 3 times for Boston during the 2021 postseason. Well, it's crazy to think of the 18 home runs, half of them have come as a Philly, right? And this is the second year that he's been a Philly, but, half of them have come as a member of the Phillies, and 2 of them came last night. So he ended up tying Reggie Jackson. I'm sure he's going to pass him. There is an extra round of playoffs now than there used to be. And if you guys remember, Mr. October, He had the amazing run as a Yankee. He actually came up as an A and was part of Oakland's back-to-back World Series championships when they three-peated in the 70s. But he was hurt for some of that, so missed some of the postseason. But that's the only team in baseball history that wasn't a Yankees club to win 3 straight World Series. And you look at the talent that the A's had back then, and I mean, really is something. But I've always been a huge fan of Reggie Jackson. I think in the backyard, I imitated Reggie time and time again. And, it's pretty stiff company, pretty elite company for Kyle Schwarber to be tied with him for the most home runs by a lefty. Now, this is going to surprise you. It took Schwarber 18 games. It took him 17 games less to get to 18 home runs than Reggie. So you think about it, the extra round of playoffs like we have now, you would figure that Schwarber would have a lot more at-bats and games to play, but he didn't. Jackson did it in 77 games, and Schwarber has done it in 60 games. So that's impressive there, and it's going to be pretty exciting to see what Schwarber ends up doing in his career. Now, I know a lot of Cubs fans are going, why in the hell did the Cubs basically release him? They did during COVID, when everything was kind of going downhill. I guess they thought they were going to save money, and they probably did. But now look, I mean, wouldn't you love to have Kyle Schwarber somewhere on the field still wearing a Cubs uniform? Of all the guys that they traded, and they got a lot of good players, good young players for the core of the team, to just let him walk away like that and then watch what he's doing right now. It's definitely a kick in the groin, to say the least, to see what he's doing. But of the teams that are left playing right now, the Phillies with him and Castellanos have the biggest Cubs footprint to me. And so, with that said, I'm pulling for the Phillies and Schwarber because I do love Schwarber so much, and hoping that those guys continue to win, and maybe he'll get another World Series. And this one he'll be healthy for, because if you remember, he really was playing prematurely to try to get back and help the Cubs in 2016. So anyway, guys, I thought we would talk about that. Everyone's kind of buzzing about Kyle Schwarber. Thanks for being here. Let me know what you think. Do you pull for former Cubs when they're on other teams, or do you pull for them not to do well in the postseason? I just have a soft spot for those guys, I guess partly because I know them and I know what kind of people they are, and particularly Kyle Schwarber. And I'm sure he didn't want to leave the Cubs, and, just kind of the way that business works. But who are you pulling for? You going for the Cubs? Dusty Baker, a former Cubs manager, is with the Astros. I don't know that there's not a whole lot of love left for him. People wanted him out of town. I think he kind of took the rap for that 2003 team, but still going at it. He won the World Series last year. So there's some other Cubs fingerprints around baseball as well. And, we're down to the end. This is it, coming down the final stretch. So we'll know who's in the World Series probably by maybe by the weekend, and if not, by pretty soon after. It's coming up, because these series are starting to get to the point where, two teams have 2 games to none's leads. And so maybe by the time you're watching it, could even be further along. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Like and subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and hit the bell so you know when we're dropping content. Go Cubs.